Psychotechnologies live. Woo!
Um,
So welcome to a very special episode of Psychotechnologies
every time,
live.
every time he does this.
No, but this one is a special one.
Yeah, okay, fine. This one is the special one.
Yeah, just like the last special ones were also special ones, but it's a different kind of special.
Uh, all right.
So in this one, Elliot, do you want to?
All right. Yeah, so I've been, I recently went traveling to America, as we know from the last couple of episodes. And I met a whole bunch of people who don't spend as much time as me reading books about trauma and watching YouTube videos about trauma and learning and like trying to do therapy with people and like learning the ropes. And what I realized when I met these people is that, oh shit, I know something like big that I've never written down that is not very well documented and took me like 50 books to find. Like as in like it took me a bunch of books to put it all together, but is not very well documented with it other than if you comb through a whole bunch of books and start to see the model. So I wanted to be like, here's the model, which is definitely not going to go as smoothly as I imagine. But it's kind of like I have a lot of working models and I juggle all of them in order to get the sense of what's going on. It's like I can just like lean in and out of different metaphors for different people or different moments. So I have this one working model. I was in San Francisco and I was chatting to a bunch of people and I was like, oh, your psyche is like a stack. Like it starts when you're born and then stuff that happens there is the foundation, and then like on top of that is the stuff that happens when you're one, and then on top of that is the stuff that happens when you're 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to your current age. There's like a stack of like working model of how the world works, how you interact with people. When you were a teenager and you said something dumb and then you were like, I'm never going to say these things again, you like sort of shift this way, and then you're like a couple of years later you're like, I'm not courageous enough, and then you add a bunch of courage, and then you're like, so you build this like stack of strategy as to how to approach the world and how to interact with the world. And so like just having this working model of like your psyche is a stack, your traumas are chronological, and so you can approach them in a stepwise fashion, or they may not be, your whole life might not have been traumatic, but certain moments may be particularly pivotal for reprocessing, for coming out the other side better. Just having this idea that like your psyche is a chronological stack is huge. Like that's not written down anywhere as far as I know. I just took me a while to notice that. And then like once you have that working model, different types of therapy do well for different parts, different chronological moments in that stack. So there's two things. One is depends what your age is when you're going back to process, and also depends what age the thing happened. So stuff that happened when you were 10 is going to be very different to process than stuff that happened when you were like 1 or 2. Like you were just simply a different person when maybe like a bad thing happened to you.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a Jenga tower.
I mean I call it a Jenga tower. Yeah, that's one of my coinings as well.
Yeah.
The Jenga tower of the mind.
Yeah. So you got this Jenga tower, and then like doing stuff at the very bottom, at the very base of it, which would be like 1 or 2 or 3 is gonna, it's like a different. You're doing it differently than if it's like 10 levels up or 20 levels.
Right. Well, and also, it's kind of tricky. Like if your whole tower, if you've got a Jenga tower, and it like halfway up it starts leaning this way and keeps going, and then you're like, oh, I'll just shift the bottom. Like you can't shift the bottom because the whole thing will like topple or something. You have to very carefully, if you intend to shift the bottom, very carefully. Well, first of all, you might want to straighten up the top, but then if you straighten up the top, it may start falling the other way. So it's like, It's not so easy as just like, oh, I'll just whack it with a hammer and it'll be solved. These things can be, I don't want to say like delicate, because the mental landscape is not nearly as delicate as the physical landscape, but they may balance on each other in such a way that to change the bottom rung will be very confusing for the next rungs up, and require like reprocessing and reprocessing.
Mhm. And so, and then like if your like tower is leaning like one direction, then you start stacking stuff on the other direction to balance it out. But then, you know, which makes sense in that moment. But then when you're going back, to align things is going to screw up everything that's being built on top of that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And so then there's sort of like when you approach working with your, I'm going to call it the client, whether you're the client, whether someone else is the client, approaching the client's psyche as a stack. Like it seems like when someone comes to therapy, right, or someone comes to coaching, they are like, here's my problem, right? They state a problem. That problem could be like the middle of the stack. It could be the top of the stack. Could be the bottom of the stack. It could be like, I'm at work and I'm procrastinating, like today, like top of the stack as we are today. It could be like, you could go from there to like, oh, when I think of doing this work, I'm reminded of high school, like the middle of my stack, and like how I was so overwhelmed with high school, and like work today feels like high school. It could be all like, every time I try and work, I feel like stressed out, and so it could be like my like latent stress levels from like lower in my stack. Like my childhood had this like have to be like on top of everything, you can't do wrong things. Like it could, but we could jump around that stack in order to start trying to like resolve the thing. That's like an important.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about how they're in an important meeting or they're doing something that's like adulty,
Mhm.
and then they're there and they're back in high school, or
Right.
they're just a kid again being yelled at or whatever.
Right. I talked to someone recently who was like in like around 40 in age, and they were saying that their sleep is terrible at the moment. They just wake up and they're exhausted. And like one of my favorite questions here is like, is the how did you feel? So in that moment, when you wake up feeling exhausted, do you feel like your current biological age, or do you feel like a different age? And the person sort of like looked at me and went, yeah, actually, I'm reminded immediately of high school, like year 7, year 8, whatever, and like having to drag my ass out of bed to get to school. Now, this person is today having like flashbacks to high school. They're being visited by high school, and I was like, great. What you need to do is stay with that feeling. Like when it comes up, tomorrow morning, a few days from now, when you wake up and you feel exhausted, stay with that emotion that is coming up, and think about and like be present to and just sit with high school and what high school was like and the emotions there, and process by sitting with it, listening to
Like
it.
relive relive you being in high school, relive the formative moments, in
Yeah.
this new.
Well, I mean, I've said this word, and now I need to explain that. The word process. So when we talk about trauma, we often use this idea of like, let's process that trauma, right? And it's never, you just saying process the trauma doesn't seem clear to a person who's never done that. It's completely obvious to a person who's done a bunch of it, and you're like, oh yeah, I just processed it. But to someone who's never done it, what that means is you have to sit there. You have to sit there, you have to do nothing, and you need to like stay with the memory of it. Not in a like, we're gonna lock you in prison and force you to like be re-traumatized sort of way, but like you'll have the recurring, so in this example, the feeling waking up and feeling sleepy still, and the like, one option, I kick my ass out of bed, another option is I sleep in way too long. Sort of there's no good balance, but I wake up sleepy and then I sit with it. I don't go back to sleep, I don't like kick my ass out of bed, but I just pay attention to the emotion and I stay with it, and I sort of like think about or listen or like let my mind wander to what is it about this thing that is coming up. Why is this memory or this emotion coming up to meet me? And like clearly it's not informed by my current bedroom and my current environment because it's fairly safe and neutral, but it's something in memory. So I'm going to sit with it, I'm going to try and pull up those memories and see if I can recall and just like spend some time and hang around them. And that often triggers some sort of processing or reflecting or rethinking about or like re-evaluating the relationship I have with that memory.
Mhm. So kind of hmm. I think of it a lot of the time as like reliving the memory, but like then like choosing to relive the memory
Right.
and living it and like living it and experiencing it like maybe differently, or maybe you're making different choices, or maybe you're even just processing it
Right.
differently, like
See, it's the like we don't explain what we mean by processing it. So there are many
relating.
actual pathways for processing, right? The outcome is I relate to it differently, but one pathway is um, I have an adult mind now, and I look at that memory and I'm like, oh, I wish what I could have done in that time was to sleep more. And the like rewriting the relationship between when I feel tired, I'm allowed to sleep, like rewriting it from when I feel tired, I have to go to school, to when I feel tired, that means I need to sleep. And so I form a healthier relationship with that emotional experience.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So that's one pathway. There are many pathways. Like, uh, for example, if it was a confusion, right? I'm at work, and every time I try and do stuff, I feel very confused, and then I feel overwhelmed, and then I like run away, or I quit, or I take a sick day, or something, right? If I go for that confusion and I sit in that confusion, suddenly I'm reminded of like math class in year 3, where classic. So many people have trauma from math classes. It's amazing. Um, but instead of uh, pushing the confusion away, this time I'm going to sit with that confusion, because confusion is a emotional experience that often happens when I don't understand things, right? So as I sit with that confusion, it this is some fascinating stuff. So sometimes confusion, or it used to be, confusion used to occur to me as like a dizziness. Like I would actually get dizzy as I was trying to process it, and the dizziness would be distracted. I had this one time. I was trying to process something, and I was talking about a memory or something, and I said to a person like, "This is the memory," and then they asked me a question about it, and immediately I was dizzy and I couldn't remember the memory, and I had no idea what we had talked about, and I said like, "What was I just saying?" And the other person was like, "I don't really remember," and I was like, "It's gone." Like it had left my memory and it had left my conscious experience because I was so dizzy that it had just like, this information is gone now. Like it was a complete cover to get rid of that memory. I was like, wow, that's an unusual phenomenon for me. But that's something that dizziness will do. It'll like kind of cover emotional experience. But to process,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
to like
that's
hang out.
fascinating. That's like you, like this is, I think, like sort of like in regular psychology, it's you're like re-triggering the trauma to a certain extent, like in certain ways. And so like this is when you're talking about that memory, then you're getting like that's them re-triggering you, and you're getting dizzy and you lose the memory.
Right.
And I think like having that container where you can both lose the memory but then also come back to it.
Mm.
You're not like forcing the pathway to be a certain way, but
Mm.
you are also not avoiding it as well.
Right. So that this is actually a really interesting example, because a couple of things could be, or it depends which model you sort of look at it through. But one of the models is we sort of have these protector systems in our mind. So I had this memory that was coming up, and it was like bad stuff, whichever bad stuff it was. And I had this protector strategy that was get dizzy until you forget about stuff. And that's an example of a like protector strategy. Another one is get distracted. Another one is like get angry and then like dismiss the topic, like get angry and try and scare the thing away by being angry, right? Someone's come to me and tell me I'm doing a bad job at work. I suddenly get angry and tell them like, I'm not doing a bad job, you're doing a bad job, and then they like run away. I'm like, I guess I won because I got angry. But
Yeah, like as a defense, anger as a defense mechanism.
right. We've got the like get scared and run away. Like all of these are protective mechanisms in our psyche, like protective strategies. I mean, and this leads me to another model of like trigger, right? Trigger and people under trigger. So, this is so one of my favorites here is the model of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. You know this? Have you heard this?
Yeah, the 4 Fs. Flight, freeze, fawn, and fornicate.
No. Fawn is fornicate. Fight, they like get angry at it. Flight, like run away from it. Freeze, as in like lock up and do nothing. And fawn being make nice or make love to it. Which is like a strategy to survive all sorts of bad things that like hit you in the face.
Yeah. I think people do that in dating as well. They can have those. And so if you have someone that's like scary, like I think there's certain people are attracted to bad boys is like a trope. Or bad girls or whatever. And
right. And then they do the make nice thing and the like.
Yeah,
and there's like a hero complex thing, and then there's these kind of start pointing to attachment styles, like response strategy and attachment styles, like totally connected.
Yeah, or how you do to like bosses, let's say, which or teachers or whatever, authority figures. And so you could have like a fawn response, or you could have a fight response would be like more ODD,
right. So the model of trigger, right? Something has happened. There was a loud noise. Someone yelled at me. Like, I like, no one's in charge, and there's too many people arguing at once. Like, even like I'm hungry, right? The like. There's some sort of stimuli that causes a response, and I receive the stimuli as triggering my desire to like respond. In some circumstances, people can get a little like triggered but not do anything. In other circumstances, they can get like there's like a narrowing of options, and when people narrow down to one, sometimes two, but let's go for one of these. So a bunch of people are arguing in the room. I walk down the street and someone bumps into me, and I narrow down to like fight, right? And I turn around and I say to the guy who bumped into me, "What's your problem?" You know, I be aggressive, I be angry, and you know, the original trigger may have been an accident, who knows? But the other person is also triggered by my like, what's your, you know, I went into fight, they went into like trigger as well, and they went into flight, and they were like, oh no, blah, blah, and they're like make up a bunch of gibberish and walk away very quickly. And I went, my trigger system went, I won. I successfully defended myself from the threat, right? And so right, that gets reinforced, and theirs were like, I ran away and I'm safe, and theirs gets reinforced, and like we both walk away, and we're just both slightly more fixed in our ways.
Yeah, I think there's this classic like way of doing things like in our circles, where if somebody's coming across really aggressive or something, you just keep talking calm and like nicely to them, and then it kind of dies down. And I think part of what's going on is that they're having this reaction to the stress, but then when there's no continued stress response, then that reaction just it sort of collapses on, like it loses strength, like there's nothing.
Right. So we get to like, from here we can branch into transactional analysis. So there's a model of therapy called transactional analysis, which proposes the like pop psychology version is that people are playing these games with the payoff. So my game is I'm the tough guy, and the weak guys, the guy who ran away's game was like, uh, uh, I'm weak and therefore not worth the fight. Um, and so I played my game, and he got scared, and he played his game, and he ran away, and then like success. We both like played our game, and we got the like I got to feel like tough, and he got to feel like he saved himself by playing weak, and then we like both pat ourselves on the back for our behavior, and we like no one learned anything, and we got slightly more traumatized. So that's the
Well, like that's the system now.
right. That's a transactional analysis. Like this is the transaction that we made with each other.
Yeah.
This is one version of what can happen, and different games people play. This is Eric Byrne, who made transactional analysis, wrote a book called Games People Play, and sometimes people play the like I'm the parent, you're the child. Sometimes people play you have to take care of me, like I'm the child, you're the parent, I'm weak, you have to take care of me. Like people play all sorts of like versions of games for various payoffs. Like people play the I don't understand, you have to explain it to me because I'm defective, and then you explain it to them, and they either they like dig deeper into defective, or they're like, oh, that's better, you've saved me, and then we get the like hero and like victim dynamic, and yeah, there's kind of like a how extreme is this game, and there's the like clearly if you're doing the hero thing and they're doing the victim thing, that's extreme, but even the mild form of like feeling obligated to be heroic even though a person doesn't need help, like that's that's totally there. There's some toxic stuff around that, but that's another model, right? Transactional analysis. We can go back to the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn for a moment. So there's a trigger moment, and someone closes into like I picked fight. Let's say they close into freeze, and like nothing comes to mind, and there's this like why am I frozen, what the heck am I going to do? Freeze actually works for a bunch of threats, because on the one hand you can freeze to evaluate the threat, so you can have like a freeze and then a flight, like freeze and then a run away, or you can have a like freeze and play dead, which a lot of creatures do. If you go to like attack a lizard, they might run for a bit, or they might like freeze, like they think that you don't see them, they freeze, and then if you do see them, they start running.
Yeah, possums are famous for
Yes, playing possum. The like playing dead thing. Yeah, absolutely. But what you can do with this is you can try, like you've got a moment where you are like the walls have closed in and you only see one option ahead, and it is your fight, or it is your freeze, or it is whatever. Like it is your having to make nice, otherwise the world will end. Right? Suddenly heavily obligated to make nice. So what you can do is one option is to upregulate the other pathways. Right? And this is complicated because what you end up with is everything's upregulated, and then you have to downregulate again. But
so what's an example of how would you upregulate all of them?
Right. So I'm walking down the street and the guy bumps into me. Instead of leaning into I lean into my fight, and then I'm suddenly really angry right now. But I got other options here, right? So I noticed the really angry, and then instead of going like yelling at the guy, I put in a trigger action plan that, I know this, I practice this. As I get really angry, I need to remember I can just walk away. I can flight. I need to remember I don't have to do anything. Like I can choose whether I continue to get angry, and I can like make nice. Like sometimes when I make nice, like what if I just was like, oh, sorry. And the guy was like, sorry about that. And then we like both went on our way. Like, so an upregulating is partly a mental move to remind me of my options, and partly like a physiological move to like remind me of the like physiological pathways of choice. And of course, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn sounds like a very physical phenomena, but it extends from the physical into the like mental landscape. So my like someone is disagreeing with me in this conversation, and as a like epistemic rule, I could fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Like I epistemically, I could like disagree again, or like push my point. I could like backtrack into a different argument. I could like do nothing and listen, and I could like make nice and agree with where like these are my like mental, emotional options to in the same way in the mental landscape as they are in the physical landscape. And so again, recognizing there are multiple options here and like having available, reminding myself just how many options are available can change my habitual pattern. Because ultimately what I want is that under pressure, in that moment when I go under pressure, I need the most options possible. Well, it's complicated. If it's really, really quick, I want to like just impulse it. Right? I want to punch someone and run away, whatever, if I need to. But if I have a little bit more time, then I want as many options as I can so I can choose the best one.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't know if that's always true because I think often you want you just want one option and it's the correct option. But,
right. But
given the
one you learned in your childhood is not still the correct one.
right.
And this is another model, right? This is another model of therapy. We through our childhood, we get triggered and then we like build in a response. Like, you know, you're a 3-year-old and you're like, I'm hungry, what am I going to do? And you decide that the way to deal with this is to get really angry. And then you get really angry. Eventually your parents work out what's going on and they give you food and you feel better. And you're like, well, that worked. And like deep in your subconscious is the checkbox for, well, that worked. Let's do that next time. And then you're a 20-year-old who still gets angry when you're hungry. And you're like, okay, maybe that's not the best way to solve this.
It's not a good, it's not
right. So there's this. The model is like sometimes we lock into our psyches when we're young, poor adaptive responses to what's going on, and probably we need to examine them to like double check.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's like sort of like training yourself to be able to access all four of these issues.
In theory, these like I do wonder about these whether these four are different emotional pathways as well. Like we've got the anger, the fear, the like assertiveness of fight is like anger. The runaway of flight is like fear. Although fear sometimes goes to freeze as well. Like I'm so afraid that I like lock up and I freeze. And then the fawn doesn't really fit sadness, but it's like these are it doesn't quite fit, but it's kind of like deep in our minds from that like escape and survival thing, the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Interesting. So to like move on, so you have these four options that you can like give yourself these different options. You can do it through like reliving the experience, making different choices. I guess like taking a beat and making different choices when you're in that.
Right. So often the difficulty of like the narrowing in and the feeling like there's only one option is it's very much an emotional experience. Right? I'm like suddenly blind with anger and I'm like, must kill this man who has slighted me by bumping into me on the street. Right? So that's a difficult one to just remember to think, now I'm just going to like walk away. Like it's kind of hard to do. What we need to do is we need to get that reminder on the emotional level. So like you said, practice, we need to go and grab that emotional experience in a safe container and we need to like process it. We need to sit with that emotional experience, get used to how blinding anger can be and sit with it, like hang out with it for 5 minutes, maybe like a couple of minutes. It only takes a couple seconds, but it takes maybe a couple minutes to get to the right couple of seconds.
Yeah, and then to like calm down from that.
Oh yeah, and then there's a like on the other side, right? And then I'm like, oh, that's just what anger is. Sometimes you get very angry, and then you feel kind of blind, and then as I know it really well, I don't have to fight someone about it. I can freeze on that reaction, and then decide what I'm gonna do, and get more and more resource to make those alternative decisions.
Yeah. I think like some group stuff they do this where if you're like revisiting the angers, you're like, well, how did you feel in that moment? And then when the person is talking about their anger, like when you're remembering a story, recalling an incident and you're sharing it, like you're going to feel the things that you were feeling then. And then you're reactivating those emotions, and then that's your chance to reprocess them.
Yeah.
Or to like in this example is to sit, like reprocess them in the way of sitting with them. And like I know this is the thing that you like to do, and I like to do as well. It's
This is
when you
one of my like, this one I made up myself. Like I didn't read it in any book. I've still never found it in any book. It's one of the best developmental improvements I can offer to people, which is to pick an emotion, and like fear, anger, sadness. Pick anger, right? Get angry and sit there.
Yeah.
It's the one, right?
Sit there with that anger.
Right.
Like almost meditate on it, let it consume you, let it feel it, like, and not act from it, but to experience it as to experience anger as anger, not as a justification for creating harm, but as the emotion, as the experience itself.
Yes. And so what I do, I call up anger, and I sit here, and I'm like, there's a few ways to call up anger. One way is to recall memories that make me angry. Another is to and play them on repeat. Like notice my physiology get like. Another way is to like think of like ideas, or to like some people can just do the physiology of anger. Like I'm just going to work up that anger, and then as I do that, I'm reminded about every other thing I'm angry about, which is top-notch content, like very processable. So stay with it. Don't act on it. You don't actually have to do anything. I realize there's another model here, inside and outside, which is very, very useful. And sit with it and get to know what it's like when I get angry. Get to know what anger feels like. Get to be skilled at being angry and staying with it. That is super powerful. Will work wonders for the rest of your life. Every time, and the beautiful thing about this is, you're at work and your boss is angry at you, and your boss is angry at everyone, and everyone's like, avoid the boss today, he's super angry. And you go say, hey boss, how's it going? And boss says, words to the effect of, no one's good around here and I am very angry. And you're like, oh, we're angry today, okay. And instead of feeling like you are triggered into your flight or your fawn or your fight, you can just kind of stay with it in a way that is like, you have all of those options available, but we're a bit more angry. And that's an incredibly powerful thing, because instead of being controlled by the other person's behavior, you suddenly have options, you have choice. They get angrier and angrier, and you're like, what seems to be the problem? They can get angry and angry, and you can be like, oh, I can see we're getting angry. Are you done yet? Like, how much anger is there? Like, politely, hopefully. And like,
it's like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's like playing with fire. So like, if you've never played with fire before, fire is super scary and it burns and all this stuff. But if you like take the time to sit with the fire and like see how it works and see how it looks, then you're gonna be able to you're gonna have better insight into what's happening. And it's not just someone lights a fire and all of a sudden now you have to freak out because fire is the worst.
Right. Well, I mean, I would say that more adults should learn about fire. That's probably a really good thing for people to learn and understand fire. I mean, I had a late teenager stage in which I joined the circus people who did fire twirling. And so there's a whole bunch of like people who are like, it's fire, how interesting. And, wanted to play with it more. But
so cool. No, we just did, we took matchboxes and we used to like flick them at each other.
Like the matches.
Like the matches.
You and every other 12-year-old, 11-year-old. Yeah.
I was a little bit older than that.
Okay. Fair enough.
But like it's that kind of thing where you're getting like accustomed to it and used to it, and then you gain a sort of mastery, or you gain a mastery and a respect over it, and so to engage with it or to live in the same space as it without having to just have like one of these autonomic reactions.
Right. And then with another working model, make friends with the parts of you, including your emotional experiences. If you can make friends with your emotions, suddenly, instead of every time you get angry, you're like, oh no, I'm getting angry, I have to like suppress or run out of the room or do something. You can just like, oh, my anger is telling me the things I care about.
Just breathe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really good. Like I think like the best is when you're in that heated discussion or a heated argument or whatever, and you you just breathe and just experience it.
Mm.
And that it like it kind of it like mutes it, or it like calms, like the anger is still there, everything, the feelings are still there, everything's there, but you're not the anger anymore.
Mm.
You're the person experiencing the anger, you're the person seeing the anger. You're not the anger itself. And that's like what do we call it, ego syntonic, ego dystonic.
Ooh,
uh,
nice.
yeah, callback. And um yeah, and like relaxing, and it so much reminds me of like the jhana stuff, where the jhanas where you want to sit in the jhanas for a while, just to
Mm.
like acclimate and get used to it, so you can go, I mean in this case it's to go back there, and then I guess with the anger it's so that you, I mean I guess the polite way of saying it is so that you can leave the anger when you want to, but
Mm.
also so you can
Well,
visit the source of the anger.
actually, I have a few different ideas about what's going on. Why is this good to go sit in anger? Uh, one
Why
idea
should,
is that
why should we sit in anger
yeah.
when so much of philosophy and psychology and all these things tell us not to sit in anger?
Well, first of all, it's because anger is a natural part of the mind and body, and so if you are unable to access a natural part of the mind and body, you're just limited in your experience of reality. You're like, I guess I can't go there. There be dragons, and so forever things will evade your psyche because there be dragons. So it's good to be able to go there to visit it to understand it.
The thing you're unwilling to visit becomes.
Right, it'll control you because if you can't get angry, you'll forever be living a life dodging anger. Like, don't piss other people off. Don't like get passionate about things. Don't like have too much of a drive because that's a little close to anger. Like, but why is it good to sit in anger? So one reason, the first reason I can think of is that most people before I had encountered this exercise, there was just like stuff that I was kind of angry about on a day-to-day basis. There's like someone did something annoying. Like last week, I had an argument with someone. Like someone cut me off in traffic. Like there is latent anger to the journey through my life, and sitting in anger starts to process that, starts to clear it up, starts to let me like feel it, agree with it, validate it, and let it go. Like, oh yeah, I was angry about that. Yeah, that was wrong. Yeah, I disagree. Yeah, I care about that. Yeah, I want that. Like suddenly all of these things, instead of so I call it the rubber band model. So instead of like all of them like being full sit stuck in my psyche, I can like relax the rubber band, and I'm not, and then I can like get angry and relax again easily. But if I'm like already stretched to my limit, and then I'm like adding more anger, and then someone slights me, then I might like stretch and snap, and then like, you know, do something regrettably unreasonable in kind society. But if I can like unload the stuff that makes me angry, then I can sit in a baseline that's like much more calm, much more relaxed.
Mhm.
So that's the first reason why it's good to sit in anger. The second is like as I sit in anger, I get to know it. It gets easier to hang out with. In future, I can just be angry and just like, okay, looks like I'm angry today. Today's an angry day. Let's just be angry at stuff without having to suppress, control, like divert, eat food to cover it, like all sorts of distract. Like I don't need any of those. It's very hard to get where I'm going when I'm blocked by all those other things. If it is that my body and my mind really need to get angry, we should be able to go there. So that's the second reason. We want to be able to like. Third is we want to be free, right? I want to have access in and out of anywhere that my mind needs to go. It's like exercise. If I'm a fit person, I can run up the mountain if I want to. If I'm not a fit person, it's going to be a lot of work to get up that mountain.
Mhm.
So I want more freedom. I want access to the ability to change emotionally if I feel like it. Um,
Mhm.
this is my like impassioned argument for why people should get to know their emotions.
Yeah, I was just experiencing a lot of stuff when you were saying that. That's why I'm like not responding right away.
It's okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, even to just take it a step further, it's not just anger, it's all the emotions, right?
Right.
Like
So,
love.
so I do the big three of fear, anger, and sadness. And I'm like, as I've described with anger, you can sit in fear, and like
Yeah.
as I do that, immediately first thought is like, is the ceiling gonna crash in on me? Like, oh no, my house is in
Yeah.
pieces.
Oh,
What the
dude,
hell?
yeah.
Like, it's just right.
Getting
Like I don't
scared.
usually think about it, and then suddenly I call up fear and like, shit, oh my ceiling.
Yeah, like it has happened like when I'm scared and I know intellectually there's nothing to be scared of, but I am having that like emotion, and to just sit there in the fear and like be afraid
Mm.
is like it's intense.
Not what we
Like
usually think of as adult, but actually, being able to lean into it is much more of an adult thing than like, if I'm like, oh, kids get scared, I'm not gonna get scared because I'm an adult and try and suppress it. Like,
no.
that's not a very adult move. But to be able to stay with it,
Yeah. Getting scared is a human thing. Kids are sometimes controlled by their fear, and
mm,
that's more of a kid thing. To be able to like to be able to experience fear, and then classically it's to be brave and to do the thing anyway.
mm,
But for this situation, we're saying you don't even have to do a thing. Like you just have to be there.
mm,
And as like a meditation is to exist in it is fear loses its power over you.
mm.
Um,
Right. And then, so the remarkable thing, what you just said there, that it loses its power over you. If we go back to our psyche as a stack thing, and there are all these times in which we have gotten scared or gotten angry and like had to put in like strategies to avoid it, and suddenly fear and anger are not the enemy anymore. Suddenly all of those strategies can start to dissolve and change because like, oh, that's just me getting angry, oh, that's just me getting scared. Like, I don't have to worry about that anymore. And it's just like it's a speed up for the processing thing, for the
yeah,
reprocessing, for the like reevaluating life.
yeah, and there's so many decisions we make based off of our emotions, or to avoid, or to work around our emotions, and then to just not have to do that. Like so much of the complexity of life just like falls away, and
Mm,
you're just a person enjoying life,
mm.
like living your best life.
Right. So this is an interesting other model. Um, why is it that I wake up and have a miserable day? Like, what the hell? I'm no longer a child, and like, but I don't seem to have optimism for the future.
Mhm.
Right. What's going on here? How is it that like anyone gets to a place where they're waking up and they're just not having optimism for the future? Well,
Mhm.
so two working models here. One is past, present, and future. So being clear about we're talking about the past, memories, talking about the present, waking up, and we're talking about the like as I look forwards to my day, my week, my month, my year, I don't have optimism about it. But
Okay.
here's what's happening. I'm waking up and I'm like, oh, I don't really have optimism about my future. So our future is, or like our prediction of the future, right? Like how we feel the future will go, which is totally an emotional or like even a mental experience. Like I predict this will happen X, Y, Z. I predict the climate change is going to kill all the humans. Our prediction of the future is informed by our experience in the past, right? How we've had our life in the recent or earlier past.
No,
Hmm?
Bayesian, like
Right,
Bayesian. So you're using the past data to predict the future.
right, absolutely. That's exactly it. So my stack, if my stack is filled with like had a bad day there, I thought I could be good, and then bad things happen. If it's filled with bad days, then I'm gonna be here looking to tomorrow, going like, well, that's probably gonna be a bad day as well, right?
Mhm.
So not in a position to be optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
Like going to be hit with PTSD. I'm going to be hit with CPTSD. I'm going to be hit with all sorts of like, oh no, what if something bad happens? Right? As opposed to being hit with, what if something good happens? You know, like if I'm no longer having thoughts like, what if something good happens, then that's a problem. Right? Because
Yeah.
it's going to be very hard to make something good happen if I can't even imagine or expect it might happen.
Yeah, or even to recognize something good, I
Right.
think is a big, is like, yeah, like if you're not like open to the possibility that good things can happen to you, then whatever happens to you is going to be bad.
Or like
Right?
taken as bad or believed to, or like suspicious or untrustworthy or all these other sorts of things. So suddenly, here we are in the present moment. We need to actually process the past so that the future continues to look optimistic. So that our optimism towards the future can be reinformed by like the possibility, like the future is full of possibilities. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is like what happened yesterday and previously. And after a while, like I'm pretty good at knowing what tomorrow's going to be like because I've like had enough days in the past. But if those days were rubbish, like would my information about the future is just filled with rubbish. So I need to go back there and reprocess. And ideally, I need to be able to have a safe container, a safe present moment. I can sit still and like look back and go like, oh, that wasn't so fun. I wish this thing would have happened better. You know, we were talking about the waking up feeling groggy, right? So I go and I call up that memory of childhood that was like, oh, having to wake up for school and be really tired. And as I sit with it, I'm like, I wish I could have just slept in longer, right? And then here I am, I'm my current age again. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling tired. I could just sleep in for longer. Wow, that's great. And suddenly, like, my future says, like, oh, I'm not going to be tired forever. I could just sleep longer and then I'll feel way better. And that, like, my optimism about the rest of my day is like replenished and refilled because I could just, if I really do feel tired, I could just sleep. Like I need to actually check if I do or don't, but that memory is no longer like, ugh, we have to slug through school. It's like, oh, I could just sleep if I need to.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I'm vibing more with what you're talking about. I do see it sometimes in other people and myself as well, where you get in this line of this is how things have to happen, and it becomes like a single linear path, and there's no creativity. You lose creativity, you lose forking, you lose serendipitous interactions. And when you're in this like other state, and then like if you can take a step back and see yourself doing that, which is very hard, you're like, oh, you're doing it how you once did it, like how you did it the first time, and you're just repeating that. But you can also think of the first time that you did a thing as a first iteration, and just, or as like a trying, like let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And I think everybody sees that, where they're sometimes in places where they're like, oh, I'm gonna try a thing, and then it works, it doesn't work, and then they try a new thing, and then some of the people that they're with are like, no, we like, this is the way to do it because that's how we did it last time, or that's how we've always done it, you know, get stuck in like this tradition, chazaka, instead of deciding that, or how do you say this, like how would you say this, so how would you switch out of there if you're like, I'm on this path and I'm stuck on this thing? How do you leave, or like how would you frame this?
So the first thing I would say is like start to notice. Like working with this, someone's come to me and they're like, I feel like I'm on a miserable path. And I'd be like, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, tell me more. Like I'm sure you mean something very specific when you say miserable path. Can you like notice your experience, notice your feeling of that path, and start to describe a little bit more? And like, how do you know you're on a miserable path? Is there like a physical manifestation of the downwards path? Like, is it like it feels like in front of me is only bad, or something, like relation to my body in front of me?
Like a taskmaster, like
oh, right. So this is the like
myself to do this.
Right. So in order, so someone comes to me with the experience, I'm like, we got to get to know it a bit better. First step, hang out with it. Funnily enough, hang out with it, process it.
Okay.
Get to know it a little bit better so that we can know what we're working with. And amazingly, sometimes just hanging out with it resolves it a bit. But also sometimes it just gives us a bit more information about knowing what to do next. But first thing
Mhm.
is hang out with it, spend some time with it, try and get a better handle on it. So there's an idea from focusing, Eugene Genlin's focusing, and he called it the handle, and it's the grip, the ability you have to like hold that emotional or mental or memory experience and like grasp it while we work with it. And sometimes that includes like naming a sensation, like it feels like a knot or something, and like, oh, my handle is the knot, right? We
Mhm.
just need some sort of handle. So downhill path, it might be the handle. We just need to make sure that we can keep referring to it while we hang out with it until we help it to resolve, relax, release, whatever it is that we're trying to do to it. We need a handle. So
Right.
we need to get to know it a bit better. So, person's like, I have this downhill path thing. I'm like, say more, like, tell me more. Let's hang out with it. Let's feel it out a bit. And that will help us build the map.
Right.
Ultimately,
So noticing it, put a handle on it.
right.
Because I do think like you're saying, we have a tendency to avoid or to move away from or whatever the thing.
Well,
And
often our experience is also like up in the air in maps. Like it looks like I'm in the mental concept of like it seems like my path is pointing downwards, right?
Mhm.
Right, and so I need to go from that map version of it to like the experiential, like the real, the more concrete version of it, and then like I can get more information from the concrete version of it.
Right. What's actually happening, not what's your perception of what's happening.
Well, I mean, it can be that what's actually happening is your perception's off, but we need to know that.
Uh, yes.
We need to get a little closer to it. Just like let's get closer to the phenomena to get to know it, to get to understand it, to maybe know which direction to move in. And then there's like a couple of basic directions. Like sometimes it's um, uh, sit with it. Sometimes it's uh, send it some love or send it some care, send it some compassionate understanding. Like maybe I've got a downhill path because a bunch of stuff screwed up and I was really hoping those things would work out. And now I'm just kind of sad about it. And I haven't actually properly processed the sadness. So what I need to
Mhm.
do now is be a bunch of sad, like be sad for an hour or as long as it takes. And then I'll feel better after that because I can think, oh, maybe I can try this instead. But until I get the sadness done and out of the way and cleared and properly released, I'm not going to
Yeah.
be able to have that, like, what about this type thought?
Yeah. I think grief is very much like that, where where you have a thing or things are a certain way and then there's a loss. And if you don't feel that grief for losing the thing, then you're still kind of stuck in this like previous mindset of when you still had it, but also
Mm,
like it's not there, so you can't do anything, and then you wind up getting like sort of like stuck in like a frozen moment in time that's miserable.
mm,
And then so to like actually like grief and mourn what you've lost, be it a person or a thing or whatever, and then that lets you move on with your life
mm-hmm,
and it opens up new possibilities.
mm. Yes. So I realize there's another model that I haven't mentioned in here really close. So I'm going to call it like big T and small t trauma, which is people who've done a bunch of thinking about and working with trauma have realized that there's the big T traumas, like you got in a traumatic car accident, you saw someone die in front of you when you were a 5-year-old, like big, like honestly easy to say that was traumatic,
Mhm.
very easy. And then there's something more like the small T trauma, which is like, you were bullied at school. It really like it doesn't feel like it's worthy of being qualified as the like someone died in front of you sort of trauma, but it could have
Yeah.
still been traumatic and more literally, you can just treat it as trauma and like respect it as trauma and process it in the same way as trauma, the bad thing that happened. And it's important, like from a therapeutic perspective, to like recognize it's not big T trauma, like it's not a car accident that someone died, but it is still like a little bit of traumatic or a little bit of like bad thing that you can be affected by many, many years later, like the math class example.
Mhm.
Like you can be 30, 40, 50, 60 and still be being trapped by the thing that happened when you were in school. You know, how long are you going to wait? You going to wait till you're 80 or are you going to solve it today? Like I'm super pro, like, let's resolve that trauma. Let's work with it. Let's go there.
Mhm.
But the idea of small t trauma, that even these small things, not that like, I don't want to like victimize. Like I don't want everyone is now a victim. Congratulations, because small t trauma, everyone's now victimized. That's not the
Yeah,
point of it. The
everyone's
point
like,
is like, hey, we can work this out. We can resolve it, and then like you don't. Then no one's the victim because we had bad stuff happen to us, but we've overcome.
mhm.
But this model of like there's stuff that are the small t traumas that like that are worth processing, worth treating seriously, worth like spending time with and healing is very, very important.
Yeah.
So that's huge. That's huge, and that's like the examples we've used, right? The like not getting out of bed, the guy bumping into me on the street, the like the boss getting angry. Like these are um, the like confusion where the memory drops. Like these are all different like small t traumas. Like I was not actually. I never saw someone die in front of me. I never. There was no car accident. I didn't lose a limb. Like none of those things happened, and so I don't qualify as the like big T trauma. But I definitely had like bad stuff happen that was like slightly shook me or confused me or burdened me or overwhelmed me or like had me build up all these silly emotional strategies to try and bypass ever having the bad thing happen again.
Mhm. That's a lot.
Anyway, these are like how many? Let's see. So there's. Let me just repeat the list. So we got big T trauma. We got put a handle on it. We got past, present, and future. We got like sitting in the emotion. We got reprocessing things. We got fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We got uh, uh, the Jenga tower. That's like we're up to 7 so far or so. Not to mention the ones in between them that probably I didn't write down.
That's a lot.
Like this is nothing. This is like in one coaching session I may drop like as quickly as possible. Like there's a mistake here of like let me like if only I had all the models then I could solve all my problems, right? But that's not actually true. Most of the work is informed by these models, right? It
Mhm.
isn't actually these models, it's informed by these models. So once I know that there's small t trauma, and I know that the like past, present, future, my future's clouded, and I know that my Jenga tower thing is kind of like wonky. Like okay, now I need to like go to the thing and process the emotion. Right? Most of these models they sit there and they like inform the way I work. Well, not like I might not mention them if like I don't want to spend half an hour talking about the model. Like that's not therapy. The therapy is the like the hard bit.
Right, right. And even this where you're talking about it straightforward, like I know we didn't
We
actually
haven't
do
done
any
anything. Yeah, we've just talked about shit.
and still like that's a lot. Like we've been doing this for like an hour
Mm.
and like already like yeah, I think I was familiar with a lot of this stuff, but still it's yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm.
Um
Right. So I sit here, I name like 7 models, and Daniel gets overwhelmed and like he's like, "Oh no, I'm in trouble again." And then we're like, "Oh, okay, we got to slow down and process something."
I
And
feel like I usually like a lot of my places like reframe or like contextualize this, but yeah, it's a lot. That's my context.
I feel like what else can I add to this stack? Um, I
I
mean,
guess going.
yeah, I can just keep going. Like,
Oh no bigger frame. We're just vomiting models of
yeah, yeah.
trauma.
Um, uh, so I did protectors, but I didn't do the like. So internal family systems therapy. Um, yeah. Internal
Yeah.
family systems therapy has the like protectors and exiles model. So the protectors are obviously protecting something. Like the but what they're protecting is like so internal family systems calls it an exile, but you can think of it as like an inner child or some smaller part of me that's like upset, having a strong emotional experience, just like and stuck there, like no one will love me, right? And then I had the no one will love me experience, and I was like, well, that's shit. I have to cover that up, and like I install a bunch of protectors so I never go back there again, right? So now I'm an adult and I believe no one will love me, and I have all of these systems set up to like stop myself from being reminded that no one will love me. But I'm like blocked because this much of my psyche is blocked off because it's unconscionably uncomfortable to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, like you have that experience of no one love me, and then you're like, that's too much, or that's too intense, or I can't live like that. So it kind of gets like sealed off and
Right.
becomes now avoided or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if someone thinks they don't have problems, chances are more likely that they are blocking them off than they really don't have problems. Occasionally, there are people who have few problems, or they've resolved a whole bunch of their stuff with lots of trauma, but more often, they're repressing. But so protectors, and then the thing being protected, the exiles, which are usually, I mean, so bioemotive framework has a set of 9 core, sort of, I would call them unconscionable feelings. So things like I'm helpless, I'm alone, I'm unlovable. That's 3 of them. I'm like bad, like I am the bad thing somehow. There's a couple others.
I feel personally attacked by this model.
Right, but like deep in the thing being protected are these 9, which I've forgotten some of them, but these 9 things that are these emotions that we don't want to feel and we don't want to admit to having or feeling. And so we build all our protector systems around them, and like the proposal is if you can go there, and bioemotive invites you to go there, cry about them as needed, process them and release them, then the like core of your traumatic inner self is like softened and released, and then like you can process your protectors as well, and then you just feel like way better. Just the like, yeah.
I should try that. Everybody keeps talking about bioemotive, but I still haven't tried any of that.
Oh, you want me to? I can just like throw you at the deep end.
Okay, but I don't want to like railroad you if we're going through the model, so then we get distracted by actually doing some work.
It's fine. So try this. So one of the key parts of bioemotive is resonance statements. So if you say something like I feel alone or I am alone, right? I am alone, the universal statement of like I am alone, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I was gonna say, like, for me, the sentence that resonates is I'm lonely.
I'm lonely. Okay. So we say the sentence out loud, I am lonely, or I feel alone, and then we like check in the body. Does any part of my body go like 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 I really like it hits me like oof right in the feels. Yeah. That's what.
Well, this is more recent. Like this happened to me like I think a couple days ago or a week ago, and so I'm sort of like I guess like halfway through processing that.
Right. Okay. So where's the thing? So when you say I'm lonely or where do you feel it?
Like in my chest.
Right. Okay. So, well, that's the thing. They're gonna very briefly jump over to another model. Wilhelm Reich coined a term called character armor, and he literally described it like wearing a suit of armor. Right. So under there is where the thing is, and you've got a suit of armor kind of over the top, like a chest plate.
Yeah, it does feel that sometimes.
Right.
Like I do feel like even just sharing this and when I'm processing, I do feel like I'm exposing in part like in my insides to the outside.
Right.
And like normally it's like I wouldn't describe it exactly as armor, but yeah, it does feel open.
Right. So I'm going to go from here and I'm going to dart into yet another model. So we've got bioemotive, we've got character of Willheim Reich, which is about to like drop into Hakomi for 2 seconds.
Okay. Good. We're finding more
So
models.
Hakomi is another type of therapy, and it has this saying of support the defense. So the proposal is that from character armor is that the body literally goes rigid. So you have an emotional experience, and the body goes rigid over the top to like suppress that emotion. And my classic example of this is like you stub your toe and then you like clench your jaw to stop the pain signals kind of like coming all the way up to your brain to like kind of distract yourself. But what happens is you have the emotion in the chest and then you like character armor, you tense over the top of it to like
Yeah. Yeah. It feels more like tensing. Yeah.
prevent that emotion from coming up. And then you habitually lock in the tension thing, so your chest is always tight.
Yeah. 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 That more accurately describes it.
Right. So that's the character armor, that's the tension thing. These are two models that sort of this has found the same thing. So what we need to do to support the defense is so Hakomi does this like literally, like physically, like we might support you or like put weight on your chest because that's what it feels like. Right? Kind of usually there's like a heaviness or but an alternative option is like tense up, right? So the area that you've described had the resonance. We're going to tense the body in that area just like 10% extra, right? Because that's supporting like so your body is trying to tense up and we're going to support it by like helping it.
Okay, so I'm not gonna do that because I'm feeling more open now.
Okay.
And like I feel the tension, like the tension's not there.
Oh, okay. So let's try the resonance statement again. Like I feel lonely.
Yeah, I feel lonely.
Is it
Not really right now.
I'm alone, I'll always be alone, no one loves
But
me.
it's a thing that I feel sometimes. Yeah, I
Right.
feel lonely.
Can we so the resonance statement is not necessarily like there's like a semantic net, right? Right next to lonely is helpless and alone and like unloved and those sorts of things. So sometimes like lonely is no
Yeah,
longer a thing. We gotta like explore the net nearby. Is there
yeah,
a saying or like a phrase that hits it better?
yeah. I feel like I don't belong. Nobody understands me.
Right. Okay. So I feel like I don't belong. I feel like no one understands me. I feel like they're never gonna get me. I feel like I'm gonna be not accepted. Like we're
Yeah,
sort of like floating around the map trying to look for I'm
yeah.
unacceptable, like
Not unacceptable, but like there just doesn't exist anywhere that can accept me.
right. I'll never find
And
my place.
yeah.
Right. So then we're looking for the resonance in the body.
Um so it's interesting because the thing that's happening now is I'm feeling open and vulnerable with you.
Mm,
So those statements aren't like I'm currently not resonating with those statements
mm,
because we're connecting. And so there
mm.
is like this is where I belong. Like I'm feeling belonged.
Ah,
I'm feeling belonging or whatever.
like
So those statements don't resonate with me currently, um but it like the memory resonates. Like this is I do feel this. I do feel this feeling um at times.
mm,
So you know what I mean?
yes.
You know what I mean by yeah. So I'm not like I'm feeling very vulnerable in my body, like very open.
Mm,
It's kind of like a cool it's like that flush. It's kind of like shame, I guess, but not exactly.
mm.
Uh,
Okay, well, I mean let's just hang out with it for a moment.
yeah, it does feel relaxing.
Mm,
It's like relaxing, but still vulnerable. So there still feels like there's this like I might need to quickly do something.
mm,
Like exposed. Exposed is a better word.
mm.
I feel very exposed. I'm sharing like I'm sharing deep personal things, and that's exposing. What are we doing?
We're just hanging out with it for a little bit. You know, this is a like let's get to know it. It's like if it is in fact exposed or like a one of those sort of traditional negative emotions, let's like just hang out with it, give it some compassion, that sort of thing. Like,
Yeah. It feels like the antithesis of the lonely, not belonging,
hmm.
where it's like this is right now, I'm like I feel like I belong here and I can open up and be exposed and share what's happening inside me. And I'm not afraid of, I mean, a little fear, but it's, um, I don't know.
So one thing that's happening right here is we're like putting attention on this small inner child version of you that is like kind of small and exposed, right? And so we're paying attention to it. We're like, this is a part of Daniel. This is some deep part of his psyche that is small and weak and scared and alone and yeah, maybe not.
Small and weak and scared. It's not, that doesn't resonate
No,
exactly.
okay, no.
And doesn't feel like, I mean, it might be a child, I don't know. But it doesn't feel like the other things.
So the usual pattern of mental energy is that we don't have the attention on this thing. We have the attention like keeping the protectors really strong.
Yeah.
That's the usual pattern. So right now our protectors aren't quite here, and we're putting attention on the smaller thing. There's this really cool thing that happens is if we keep our attention here, this small the like the small thing gets to grow bigger and gets to grow bigger and gets to go bigger until such time as like Daniel has the capacity to stay with this
Oh,
emotion, even if it's
yeah.
bigger than its protectors. And that's like Daniel can stay vulnerable, doesn't have to be protected, can stay vulnerable even though it like hurts a little bit or it's like something.
Even though I'm vulnerable, but I can
Yeah.
still walk around and be vulnerable and
Mm,
not have to be protecting myself all the time.
right.
Yeah.
And it's also like there's some self-assuredness like, oh no, that's me in there. That's me being vulnerable. And so the stronger I make me, the less I need to like defend it because someone can try and bump into me, slight me, whatever, but I'm too big, too strong to like be bothered by all that anyway. Like it's me and I'm vulnerable.
Yeah, what you're saying makes sense. I think I'm in the middle of it, so I don't have that much insight.
Hmm.
But
Question: how old does
yeah,
it feel?
oh, I hate that question. I don't know how old I feel.
Well,
Like
but
I feel
like a metaphor. Like it seems like it's a 5-year-old child. It seems like it's a
um I don't know.
Do you have like? Is it older than 20, younger than 10?
It's younger than 20, younger than 16.
Okay, like approximately.
I guess 10 maybe.
Sure.
I'm not good with ages.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird question anyway.
Yeah. Like I've only like recently realized that I'm like in my 30s. Like
Right.
I was like, why is the world so weird? And then like I was like thinking about it for a while, and I'm like, oh, I'm like in my 30s, like everyone, like, and I was like hanging out with people in their 20s, and I'm like, why don't they know? Like, why do they know so little? I'm like, oh, they're like 10 years younger than me, and so they don't have that like same life experience, and like they're relating to me weirdly because I'm 30s and I think I'm like in my 20s.
Mm.
And so there's like this weird disconnect that's happened.
So, another model. So we have our stack, our Jenga tower, and we have, not only do we have like bits of us at different ages, but we have bits that like, we describe like protecting and like being shut off. So we have bits of us that like got kind of like left behind at those ages when they happen. They're like, oh, just like that thing was a screw up. I'm gonna have to cut off this chunk of my psyche and just leave it here and like keep going forwards to the future without it, right? And so as we like go into those pockets and open them up, one of the things we need to do is grow that part of you up with you until it's an adult age.
Yeah.
So
I'm feeling it now. There's a lot of shame. And it's like memories of like a late elementary school or maybe high school, early high school.
right. So some part of you is still reliving high school in your memories.
Yeah.
So this is like a jailbreak. We're gonna go in there and take this part of you and help it out of high school because, like,
I think it's elementary school. I think it's a memory. Yeah, I think I'm remembering being in high school and visiting elementary school and having shame there. Um, yeah, well, this is unpleasant.
Right. So, but there's a point to this. The point is to like rescue this part of you and grow it up and get it like into the like, hey, look, we're 30 now. Like the world is not like elementary school at all. What a relief, hopefully.
But it kind of is. That's the thing. Like everybody thinks that adults are not children, but they're just children with more stuff. Like they're also children. It's also the same things.
So it sounds like
So you're stupid.
sometimes you will have just naturally discovered, like as an adult, I can now solve the problems that I was having in elementary school, right? You just worked out better strategies. You're like, I know how to do this. Sometimes as an adult, you don't, right? You're like, I didn't know how to do it in elementary school, and I still don't know how to do
I
it.
still don't know how to do
Right.
it.
So this sounds like that one. They're like, and I still don't know how to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Which could be like frustrating or disappointing, or like it doesn't help to say, look, I'm a 30-year-old, because you're like, look, I'm a 30-year-old who still doesn't know how to solve the problems.
Yeah.
But
Like I'm still in grade 6. Yeah.
there's a few options here. One option is to like, you get to be honest and humble as an adult and be like, yeah, we still don't know, but like that's kind of okay. Like we're gonna work on it. We're gonna try, but like I'm not scared of not knowing like I was or like I'm not emotionally beat up about not knowing back then. I'm an adult and like, yeah, I don't know it. I'm still gonna work it out, but it doesn't hurt as much, and that's usually offers some reassurance.
The situation is different. Like it's the same, but it's not. Because like it is like I have been recently hanging out with like people from my past, and like there is a lot of shame in there, but also like everybody's got that same shame, and we all kind of like acknowledge that it's like sort of like a fucked up situation, and so we just build new relationships.
Right. Well, the
So
other option is to go like, well, what did I want back then? Like, what would I have done differently if I had what ideally what would have happened in those moments instead of what did happen?
well, ideally there would be adults around.
Right. So use some imagination. If there was an adult, then what would they have done?
They would be not creating shame. They would be um
Right. So some like fairly compassionate adult who was able to be like, oh, there's a bunch of shame around. No, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. We're just gonna hang out with it, and like an adult
yeah,
that was
or like
really
process it. Like yeah, you did something stupid and now you're ashamed. Like this is a
let's not
normal.
beat you up about it. Let's just like it's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this is how you process it. You sit with it and you experience it, and yeah, you did stupid shit and people made fun of you, and then they'll forget about it in a day, and someone else will do that.
Hmm.
And this is a human, like, welcome to the human experience. And
Right.
I also do that.
Right. And
Like,
like,
or I've done that a million times and now I don't do that anymore.
hmm. So this is the like an ideal adult would have been able to come to you and say like, hey, let's that's okay.
Yeah, like the things that you're doing are not normal, and that's why you feel ashamed about it. But it's also normal to do not normal things, and also it's normal to experience the shame. And like, here I'm going to help you a little bit.
Hmm.
Here's some guidance and some structure.
Right. So if we imagine your elementary school self sort of getting that message from an adult, remember we've got like our psyche as a stack, right? So somewhere in the middle is elementary school. We're
Okay.
going to
Yeah.
send that person to the like this memory experience. We're going to like imagine in elementary school you got this adult to tell you, right? And we're sitting here with your full psyche, right? So you today right now at the top of the stack, at the like the whole stack in the middle now has this message of like imagining like the universe is the adult sending you a message.
Yeah. I could actually do that.
Yeah.
Like, I could do this with a kid, even though I'm not, can't experience, like, I wouldn't experience their feelings, but I could still create a scenario where their feelings are
Hmm.
acceptable.
Right.
So I can do that to myself.
Hmm.
Oh, this is interesting.
Hmm. I mean, another working model of what we're doing here is we're like updating the operating system while the computer is running. Like we're modifying the middle of the stack while we're like functionally using the stack. We're not doing it while you're asleep or hypnotized. We're like,
Yeah, I can create my own environment. That's why I'm able to do this, because I'm just creating the environment and then I'm just experiencing whatever I'm experiencing. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I
Mhm.
don't know what the experience is going to be like.
Like you're making the container. You can sort of shape the container now as an adult.
Or I guess we are, you or whatever.
Mhm.
Something is here. Yeah, it's a collaborative effort for the container creation.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame there.
Oof. Would you
Yeah,
like
I
to help?
definitely didn't think.
So one
Sorry.
option is we can sort of help your past self by like feeling it now. We can like feel and process it right now, and then
Yeah,
let in the load maybe inch by inch, not like dump it all at once. But
yeah, like I'm having, I don't want to say flashbacks, but I'm having like, I'm seeing, I'm seeing what I saw.
mm,
And then there's like an empathy.
hmm,
It's like a real empathy. There's like a real connection through time
hmm,
uh, of myself now.
hmm.
That's so interesting.
Hmm. This is also the cool thing about like we are here looking back to elementary school. Some like future part of your psyche is looking back to your current psyche, like that same like right,
uh,
like your optimism about the future is like your relationship with the past.
yeah, that feels very dark for some reason.
Like your relationship to the past is dark.
Yeah, I think I did a lot of cutting off.
Mm. Okay, well, but just now you can see it. Now you can start to clear it up and work on it and make peace with the stuff that happened and reintegrate into your current self.
It feels dangerous. It feels like
Well, that's because
I'm a potential mimetic virus to take that in.
right, but you need to process it first till such a point as you're not integrating horrible shit. You're integrating like, man, I wish that went better. You're integrating the healthy side.
Technically, it's just feeling and experiences, and I've already experienced them,
Right.
so it should be safe.
Well, but you cut them off for a reason. So you should
Well, I
only,
cut them off because I couldn't handle the shame.
right. But you should not integrate shame. You should reprocess shame and integrate the healthier side of those. They're like happiness, joy, they're like
I think I'm going to do that.
reflection, self-understanding, whatever.
I want to, because I want to integrate shame.
But
Because if I just do
wait, wait.
that, huh?
Well, there's the complicated one. Yes, maybe you want to be able to experience shame now, going forward, like be okay with it if it happens. Yes, but you also want to recognize like I feel ashamed because I wish this happened instead, right? And then you want to integrate the like desire for the other thing to happen. So like that's the whole point of the memory is I wish it happened this way instead.
Oh, okay.
And then you can integrate all of those, and then like you can agree with the shame, like, yeah, of course I feel ashamed because only because I wish this other thing happened. Like completely understandable, and just like wrap it in.
Oh, that's feels very healing.
Hmm, that's good.
I feel like I'm being bathed in like a healing light.
Well, throw another working model out there. The like current psyche, when you, it's like a bright light, right? Hopefully, if you've done a bit of meditating, you're like clearing up, you're awakening, you're doing all these things. When we shine that bright light back on the past, it's like we can illuminate the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is happened in the past. We can give it illumination, and like you described, we're bathing it in a healing light. Hopefully, we shine back with compassion as well.
So the light is it's coming from the future.
Essentially,
It's
well,
yeah.
from the perspective of like being inside that memory, yes, the light is coming for the future.
No. It's
And right now, like you're sitting here with me, feeling like a light is pointing at you from the future.
it's from the future me that's looking back. That's absorbing this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's the future me is absorbing the moment of me, of my past me absorbing
Yep.
whatever. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Um, dude, that's crazy. I felt this before.
Psychotechnologies. No. This is, I mean, this is just, we're doing different psychotechnologies. They're like jumping through models and like playing through them.
Um, yeah, intellect's not working for me.
Um, so the like the way you relate to the past is the way that your future is relating to you right now. That's what we're sitting with.
Yeah, but it's not the future, it's the present. But it is also the future
Mm-hmm.
because I'm making an experience of the future. This is trippy because I'm creating an experience for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm speaking now of the present. I'm in the present now, but I'm speaking to the future as if I'm there. because I'm also there.
So part of the problem is our psyches are not so good at time. Like our psyches don't even know the difference very well between like a memory and an imagination, right? They are equally as real to our interior experience. And like that's great because we could rewrite our bad memories with like, if this thing happened instead, that would have been better. Right? We can actually like reprocess stuff because we can imagine stuff. But even so, like if I'm walking down the street and like a memory pops in, like my psyche doesn't immediately say there's a memory popping in. Suddenly I'm just in the memory, and then like I take another step and I'm back on my street, and like suddenly I'm in a different thought, and suddenly I'm like my psyche just kind of jumps around. It's not very good at telling the chronology of time, right? So here we are, like processing the past, like the future is like mushing in here, like it's all like kind of just a mess.
I feel like a mess.
Well, like from your perspective, it's probably like an orderly process or something.
It's like very aligned. Like
Mm.
the past, the present, the future, there's one line.
Mm. Okay. Cool.
It's all like one thing, but also I can see it. It's like I can see it distinctly, but I don't want to. Seems like a waste.
Well, send more healing. Send more good vibes, and that might help.
I'm not sending, I'm just being bathed. It's like coming from my spine.
Oh, okay.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling here.
Just chill.
Because I have to send anything. The future's got it.
Right, your future sending it to you. I mean, this is like people who do
It's
regularly
coming-
talk about this stuff too.
yeah, so my future self will do that. So what do I need to do?
Well, you need to receive. You need to make sure that you
Yeah.
are effectively receiving, so
Yeah.
that we pattern the receiving onto your past self as well.
Yeah, so it's like flowing through me into the past.
Mm.
Yeah, it feels like cheating. A lot of these meditation stuff feels like cheating because it's just if you sit here and feel good in this way, then your life will get better.
Well, it's kind of like what we were saying earlier of the like your ability to perceive the future as having optimism in it is your ability to pull off an optimistic future. So if you can't imagine good stuff, you're not going to be able to like recognize when good stuff lands in your lap.
Yeah, it's the past that really opened it up. It's like going back into the past and rescuing my younger self from the underworld.
Ah, yeah. Foreshadow that one a little bit.
Foreshadowing. Is like, yeah, it makes that optimistic future more likely as well.
Mm-hmm. Because you are doing it. You are literally rescuing the past right now.
Yeah, and when you predict the prediction of the future is based off the past, and so whenever now that I'm doing it, it's more likely for it to be done, even in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just checking like a little small detail. So you're receiving from the future the good vibes, and you're sending it back into the past. Can you send good vibes to the future as well?
Do I need to?
Just try it. See what happens. Just a little bit of good vibes. Like I appreciate my future self. I think my future self's going to be great.
Oh, didn't I do a whole speech talking to my future self? I guess I can do sending good vibes then. Yeah, the compassion, the gratitude for revisiting me.
There you go. And we got
But
it.
it already happened, even though it's in the future.
But now we got a two-way street of like good vibes.
Yeah, you're right. Otherwise, I'm being selfish. Just
Oh, wait, but you needed to be a bit of selfish in order to like resource yourself, then make it possible to like go forward.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And like, you were fine to do the like compassionate sending as well. You did have enough energy to do the compassionate sending. And now it seems to have worked because it's come back, right? Two-way street.
Yeah. I think my future self is going to appreciate this.
Hmm.
I think I'm
Well,
doing
this is also an interesting concept of like colluding with your future self for like the benefit of all, like your past, your future, present, and your future.
I feel like I'm in a movie sometimes.
This is a montage sequence of like development right here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because it does feel like going back and forth across time. And then it's so funny when we get there. Like I have this, it happens at parties sometimes where like a thing will happen. And I'm like, oh, I know the answer to this, or like here's the thing that's happened. Like, how'd you do that? I'm like, oh, I did it a while ago. It just only time.
It only just happened. Look, I've definitely had like, I have this very strange like deja vu thing, but I have it like the first time the thing happens, and then I'll be I'll look at what's happening and why I'm having deja vu, and I'll go like, oh, that's because this is going to happen again.
Yeah.
Not because this has happened before, but because this is the first time. I've never done this before. I know where I am, but I'm like expecting a future one. And then like 2-3 years later, the thing will happen to me. I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Uh, and then it's then it's like not really deja vu. It's like a memory of deja vu.
Right, right. It's this confusing double. Yeah, yeah, great.
I
Remark.
love it. It's like resonating through time.
Mm.
It
Well,
feels so good.
enjoy the time thing. That's important. Um,
Yeah, this is the first time it's happening, man. I mean, it's interesting because yeah, like there is. I feel like I have access to like my previous self's shadow. Like that's what's getting integrated.
yeah.
Like I generally consider myself of this lineage of myself, of like the conscious choice parts of myself. And
Mm.
now it's integrating my younger self's shadow.
Like okay, the bits younger self sort of might have rejected, but still you.
Uh
The bits of
well, like
yourself that might have been.
yeah. Or I guess it was me. Yeah, whatever. But um yeah, and there's like this like not permission thing. Because like my younger self locked off some memories, locked off some stuff because of shame. And so it's like I don't have permission exactly to experience that.
Mm.
That's interesting. This is a really interesting experience.
Elliot delivers again. Interesting
Yeah.
experiences. God, I mean, this is the like having too many models thing, right? I just stumble like again and again. I'll stumble on another one that's interesting, and another one, and another one.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't bother me at all. Because like who cares, right? Like just keep doing shit and then right, because like you're doing all the stuff, it's like you're building something, but you don't know what it is,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But it's good and it's getting better.
Mm.
What if it's like, okay, can I go like crazy?
Yeah, go for it.
Not that I believe this necessarily, but like what if we're like so apparently there's DMT aliens.
Apparently, yep.
Yeah, so I haven't done DMT, so I don't
Me
know,
neither.
but I have experienced like something like aliens from other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I think about them a lot. Like what if like what we're doing is like summoning them. We're summoning aliens or like beings from other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something because like when we're doing this, we're like getting caught up in it or not. Like I like it's sort of like letting go of that meta part of my mind of, hey, this might be a knowledge hazard. Hey, this might be like what is the picture that's going to emerge,
Mm,
right? Because that there's like planning, like sometimes you have something in your head and then you plan and you try to build it, but sometimes you just do things and then whatever happens. So like improv is like you're just doing stuff and then it takes you in places and you don't know what's going on.
mm.
And so we do this and it lets us find amazing things. But what if it's some part of some grander scheme, some higher plan? I don't know. Maybe that's just paranoia or something. I don't know.
As in, like, what if the grander scheme is good though? Like, what if we're part of a wonderful grander scheme?
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah. Like I have no reason to think. Like I have lots of reason to think it's good. Like I think the evidence is pointing to it's good,
Hmm.
but I don't know. Like I don't know.
All right. I reckon now's a good time to round up. I think I have more models. I'll have to like walk around today and find the rest of my
So
models. And tomorrow,
next time,
next time more models.
awesome.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Psych